From times immemorial, people have been using weapons of unconventional methods in wars. There are evidences that in all wars, people used to poison enemy camps, the wells, and enemy population were damaged with the different kind of attacks which are not connected with direct warfare. Dead bodies and carcasses or people died with ailments were thrown into wells sometimes because the population could get some kind of infection. They did not know and how exactly ailments would spread. If a person died with plague, the dead bodies were bundled and thrown in enemy areas so that they could get plague, and that was a way of attacking at the time. And we have very clear evidences that biological weapons have been used in many times during the World War. During the Great Wars of Napoleon, there have been deliberate efforts to spread cholera. And there have been reports about the American population very clearly using smallpox as a biological weapon, though not in the modern format, but deliberately spreading smallpox by collecting the infected liquids and distributing amongst the aboriginal populations. And there have been systematic spread of smallpox, which was not known to the aboriginal population in the then America earlier. So all these kind of methods have been trying to defeat the enemy by a tacit method, apart from the direct warfare that they would be indulging in. So nations were sometimes in enmity, and everybody thought that the highest thing that they have to achieve is to defeat the enemy at any cost, by hook or crook. So they have been using all these methods from times immemorial. Poison was used. Sometimes the leaders of the opposite camp were honey trapped and they were poisoned. So all these methods are part of a game which is not part of the direct war, but an indirect war using tacit methods. So many international powers have been producing biological warfare. For example, fevers, malaria, cholera, smallpox, all were used at different times against the enemy camps or against the enemy population. Now there is an international convention that stops all kinds of biological warfare. Even making a biological weapon is a crime now. But there are researches going on against biological weapons so that if any biological warfare comes, you should be able to counter it. Anthrax was made by superpowers. You know about the famous case of the ex-Russian spy in Britain who was poisoned. He and his daughter both suddenly got, it was just a little part of the radioactive stuff on the handle of their house. And that was it. The people are dying with that. So all these methods are illegal and discredited by the international community. But in reality, it's all being researched, and it's all being researched in the pretext of defending it. Perhaps, it's important that if some country develops a biological weapon, if all other countries are not prepared with it, it can be a danger. Therefore, like we have to still preserve smallpox virus, because if any time it spreads again, one should be able to produce antibodies against that. Similarly, a lot of research is going on, anticipating what could be the weapons that could come, but how to counter it also. But using that is a serious international crime now. Now, beyond that, now coming to the point where we have reached earlier, in Havana, the capital of Cuba, suddenly some American diplomats started a special kind of ailment. That was back in 2016. The diplomatic relations were re-established and there was a new embassy in Havana. But what's the kind of problem they had? They suddenly started hearing piercing sound in their ears. Not everybody, but one or two of them. And they explained it something like driving in a very high speed in a car with the the windows open, zzz, kind of a sound. It goes into their ears and they feel nausea, a vomiting sensation, and sometimes they would collapse, their vision blurred, and hearing declined. Many of them were hospitalized. But what was it exactly? Did they have any brain damage? No. Scanning of their brain systematically proved that there is no brain damage, but something they got, which cannot be explained. So this inexplicable experience the American diplomats faced in Havana is called the Havana Syndrome. But this term became more prominent because this did not end up with one incident in Havana. Later, one hears that such experiences are repeating in US embassy, especially people in the diplomatic area in Austria, then in Germany. So what is happening? And who would be behind such a thing? And what could be the methods to get these people completely incapable of doing anything? Many of them were in a traumatic situation. They could not do anything after that. For several months or years, they were incapable of doing anything creative. They were sick, but for no reasons externally known. Where they had any kind of radioactive particles in their body? No, nothing. There is no radiation seen in their body. There is no brain damage identified. But people had almost the same kind of experience. Suddenly, they feel blurred views. Something like it experiences something like you have a brain hemorrhage. You feel that all the nails of your brain is taken off and it's all unorganized. You hear piercing sound. Then you collapse sometimes. Sometimes you want water, but any amount of water does not solve your thirst. It does not end your thirst. You collapse. You get a fever after that because of the traumatic experience. It's a very, very serious traumatic experience for a lot of people. But they did experience this. But not one person, two person, many of them, several of the. So the United States officially warned Cuba against any kind of secret weapons used against United States. Now the question is very clear that Cuba is not such a very developed, scientifically or militarily developed country, whereas they have a great ally, that is Soviet Union or the present day Russia. 2016 is Russia. Russia has the capability to produce secret weapons. And what could be a secret weapon? With no trace of any poison, with no trace of any bacteria or virus or any other radiation, the doubts turned into a different direction. Can there be a sonic weapon? You know what a sonic weapon is? You have the frequency of sounds that you hear, there is a spectrum. Within that only we can hear. But if it is outside the spectrum, you cannot hear it. But the vibration that creates this sound is still there. And that can be used, it is used also. For example, mosquito repellent, one uses the sonic effect. There are certain level of spectrum of the sonic effect is given to the mosquito, which is not heard by humans, but the mosquitoes are, completely, they cannot, stand that, and they would all fly away. So that's used as an advanced mosquito repellent or insect repellent. And for example, if you know about how a wild dog or a wild animal can be handled in a difficult situation, there are small equipments now available. I have one with me. If dogs are attacking you, you have a small instrument like a torch. You press it, immediately sonic waves would be going into, and the dogs would feel it unbearable, and they will scream and run back. I purchased one when I was in New Delhi because we have a lot of street dogs in Delhi. Unexpectedly, I mean, if you are attacked by street dogs, you can have a sonic small torch and scare them off. And humans won't hear this voice, but dogs cannot hold it. It's available in the market. I mean, you can buy it. But can such a weapon be used against humans? The problem is, when you have a sonic weapon or a sonic beam going on to people, to an animal, all animals of that species would get it. Because all the voice, all the sonic effects, the sound that we hear, if I could hear, you could also hear. If I hear a music, if you're not deaf, you could also hear that music. There cannot be a specifically targeting sonic method that can reach certain people and would avoid other people. So what is possible then? If there is a sonic weapon used against these diplomats, so there are sonic methods to attack people. For example, I was aware about this, and I'll tell you one story where I was involved in protecting myself against a sonic attack. You know, in 2008, I was in a television program where a holy man would try to kill me with magic powers. He claimed that he can kill anybody with some mantra and tantra, and I offered myself as a guinea pig. Come on, kill me, I said. So he started chanting a lot of mantras for some time, several hours, and I mean, he could not kill me, of course, you know that. After that, the challenge extended for a night show where he will use all his magic powers in an open place near a burial ground. So this time, I had two fears. Number one, he can use real toxic material, poison, for example, on something long for chloroform and bring in front of my nose and I could collapse, which would give him an image that his mantra would work. The other possibility, experts explained to me, that one can use sonic rays on me, targeted at me, where I won't be able to hold it. I can collapse and others won't understand it. But other experts said that that's not easily possible, because if any kind of sonic beam, which is targeting a human being, would be heard by other people around us also. There cannot be any special sonic beam that I would be affected and which others are not affected. Because sound has waves to all directions. And when there is a sonic attack is made, it will not be targeting one single individual. Unless it's like a bullet, it should be aimed at as a laser ray, should be attacking one person only. That would need a very advanced equipment. So, but I was prepared for such thing. I was mentally prepared even for such an attack, because I understood that this could be a very high-profile television show. So the moment I reached this place, I insisted that I would not sit at the place designated for me, and I moved to another place. And I changed the position 2-3 times. If somebody was trying to do something of that sort, I should be able to protect myself. That was an advanced precaution that I always have. But here, the experts say that if there was a sonic attack with sounds which are out of the present wavelength that human ears can hold, and which can damage their complete brain structures, and without any kind of visible impact, how that is possible to be targeted to 2 persons in a room where 6 persons are sitting. They're not alone. When people were sitting with other people, suddenly some people have all this problem. They scream and they start hearing a lot of sounds, and then they experience this great stuff like a piercing sound, and then they start perspirating, and they would be shivering or shaking, and sometimes they collapse and they have headache and blood views and all. Some people had it. But interestingly, when it happened the second time, when there was a group of 6 people sitting and 1 person got this impact, he started shaking, and he claimed that he had this problem, apparently. So then they checked every other place, every other possible. This is in the embassy, which is a protected area. Nobody can come and place a very powerful sonic weapon there in that place. But after some minutes, one finds another person in the same room reacting the same way. And then some minutes later, the 3rd person and the 4th person. And they all fall down and scream and roll. And finally they were all taken back to United States for long-term treatment. And they had a horror feeling for a very long time. But every time it starts with one person, then it spreads to other persons. How can such a thing could go to different persons, but not everybody? But why there is no impact seen anywhere in the body? What was happening? That was the question. A lot of researchers were speaking about this. The CIA chief responded to that. During Trump's time, Donald Trump in 2017 accused Cuba of perpetrating unspecified attacks causing these symptoms. He was, he had a lot of words to counter all these kind of things. It's like a bombardment of words from him. He said this is clearly a weapon against the American diplomats. And so the undercover CIA agents were working in all different countries, started, locating the possibilities of any kind of sonic attack on American diplomats. And the doubts now went behind or above Cuba and Havana. There is no presence of Havana in Canada or in other European countries. It started happening in different places. Then they thought it could be Russia. But then the next stage of thinking was, this is Russian covert operation was the first observation of CIA. Russia has a lot of secret weapons. Then came a theory that the extraterrestrials are behind the whole thing. And they are targeting the US because that's the biggest power. And they want to control. And these are test doses going on American diplomats. And finally, the big warfare is coming. So there are articles and articles about Havana Syndrome. In 2018, one journal came out with a document telling that these all people had a kind of brain injury. One pattern of brain injury was identified. That's a big step. So was it just a syndrome, a psychological feeling, or was it just a fear complex or a mass hysteria that was happening? Is now wiped off by this journal. JAMA was the journal, which came out with there is a kind of brain injury which was identified, it said. But interestingly, what caused the injury, from where the injury came, and without having any impact on the skull, without any impact on the skin, how did it go inside the brain and damage certain parts? Or was it a coincidence that many people may have some kind of minor brain problems? And was it a coincidence that these people had some kind of a minor brain problem, which was identified and you tried to link it with that? Anyway, the US National Academy of Sciences, or National Academy of Engineering, all started working on that. The National Academy of Medicine expert committee was formed in 2020 December. They said that it's a kind of microwave energy, and it's a pulsed RF energy, was one observation. But it's an observation, a hypothesis, which was not proved. There is no proof, no conclusive evidence that an RF energy is used. But if there is an RF energy spread around, why it affects only a certain person? How specifically it reaches the brain without affecting the skull or skin or any other parts, and why it is not affecting other parts of the body. And if it was on the brain and the whole behavior pattern is based on your mental faculties being affected, that's how you feel deaf, but your hearing is not affected. You feel a blurred image, but your eyesight is intact. On checking, there is nothing wrong with your eyes. On checking, there is nothing wrong in your ears. But you have this impact. One diplomat can have a mental illusion. 2 cannot, 3 cannot, 5 cannot, 10 cannot. People of different countries cannot have. Everybody speaking in the same kind of language. How it can be a syndrome? Can it be very specifically a secret weapon? How can one rule out? Unless and until it's proved clearly how it happened, it cannot be ruled out. So the doubts now shifted from Russia to China. China is a big center of a lot of new experiments, and they have a lot of money to research a lot of things, and they're working on a lot of stuff which could be for their defense and accused us for the advanced weapons also, as weaponry also. So it all remains speculative. There is no conclusive evidence coming on anything that very clearly say that there was some attack on them. So then the health problems are typically, it had a pattern. So hearing strange sound, the sound was identified. So they were asked to hear the sound, many similar sounds. This problem was reported widely in the US media, and many television channels presented this as one of the major issues the US is facing. The US supremacy is going to be affected by this kind of attack. Unimaginable amount of fantasies and stories were in circulation. It says that it's a microwave weapon. So people in United States, the sale of microwave ovens came down in United States. So because of these reports, many people thought that the sonic rays from the microwave are going to affect you, your brain is going to affect. And there are so many people paranoid of everything, started closing down their microwaves, unplugging it, and started going to the conventional ovens. And the use of microwaves has gone down.
Remember when American diplomats in Cuba were hearing those strange sounds and then suffered brain damage from some sort of mysterious invisible attacks? Well, there's now a report, and actually multiple reports, of an eerily similar incident near the White House last year. And Senate Intelligence Committee leaders now say they will get to the bottom of it. They say the so-called Havana Syndrome attacks against U.S. personnel appear to be increasing. NBC's Josh Letterman has reported extensively on these mystery attacks since they first surfaced in Havana. Josh, after 5 years, have we learned anything definitive?
Well, when this first came to light back in 2017, the U.S. government referred to them as targeted attacks affecting U.S. personnel serving in Cuba. But over the years, the investigation stalled, and the U.S. stopped using the word attacks or weapons, instead simply referring to these as health incidents, as the U.S. government struggled to figure out what was going on, and a growing number of experts questioned whether it might just be mass hysteria. But today, two top senators briefed on the intelligence say these were definitely attacks carried out by some type of weapon. NBC News has reported that the U.S. government considers Russia to be the most likely culprit. And a report last year by the National Academies of Science found the brain injuries were most likely caused by pulsed microwave energy, which former CIA Director Leon Panetta says is a serious threat.
That kind of technology is very real. And it can threaten people, not by bullets, simply by using the capabilities to send a wave into an embassy.
What's made this so tough to solve is the fact that the symptoms the Americans are reporting are so vague. Things like nausea, hearing loss, and problems with balance and memory. Many reported hearing this sound before falling ill.
The sound is coming now.
Now the U.S. government is scrambling to figure out just how widespread this is, with new reports of new possible cases in Russia, China, and now even here in the United States.
Yeah, it was that sound. This sound was different frequencies of sound were played to people, and this is what they identified that sound, that creaking sound. So the sound was played in televisions, and nobody has collapsed. And it was all around in the United States. But still, after this, some diplomats claimed the problem. They have collapsed. They had the same kind of nausea and what it could be. Now, there are only two conclusions at this stage. So, scientifically speaking, one would not accept or reject anything a priori. If any claim or hypothesis is coming, it's not rejected instantly, but rather one would verify the possibilities of it. One should not rule out everything, but the claims are to be evaluated. So one interesting thing that was located is the behavior pattern of people are so systematically in the same way. The kind of claims are exactly the same way, which could give two clues. Number one, it could be the same kind of weapon in the same frequency that is being used and everybody is reacting the same way. Now, the impact of people. Some people have hearing problem. Some people have viewing problem. But their eyesight checked thoroughly. There is no problem in their eyesight. And they have no ear damage. So certain levels of responses in the brain is identified, but which could also be because of the brain reaction to the kind of feelings that they have. Now the present conclusion is as follows. It's a mass hysteria. It's nothing to do with reality. Because people were given similar stories and people identified in separated areas and where there is no weapon or not anything, and they were given the idea that this kind of weapons are being used upon them for testing purposes. You know what happens? That's one of the results of the double-blind testing. They had the same kind of sounds. They heard the same sound, the screaming sound or piercing sound. But when they were asked to identify the sound, they identified different sounds. And the kind of impact they had, they felt their eyesight was blurred. Again, it was not blurred. And there was no weapon used in the isolated people, and it was only claimed, told that they had this sonic experiments working on them. Still they had this impact, which rules out one possibility. Without having a sonic weapon also, if you strongly believe that there is a sonic weapon being used against you, or it could be used against you, the most vulnerable people can't have the experience without having any sonic weapon. Because these are invisible weapons. You know that people get possession. You know that there is no spirit coming into somebody's body and making you speak in different voices. But still people do it. The moment you believe that there can be a soul, there can be a dead person's spirit coming into your body and you could speak the language of the person or tone of that person or can tell the stories because of your deep possession state, which is a schizophrenic level, and you're creating a kind of hallucination. Belief is so strong that it can make you delusional. You can have illusions, you can have hallucinations. It can be articulated by strong belief in something. Apparently, most of these people, maybe the first person was a very vulnerable person who was so afraid to be a diplomat in Havana, and he got a psychological trauma, and it was impacted on other people. How mass hysteria works is a very simple thing. If you have seen or heard about how mass hysteria works in among school children, especially amongst girls in the puberty age. There was a famous story in Himachal Pradesh. One girl suddenly claims that she is possessed and she starts rolling down and screaming in the school. And seeing this, some other girls started behaving, shaking the same way and start screaming. This is kind of an identity, a group identity syndrome. And two persons behaving the same way, the third or fourth person would immediately start doing that because the immediate inner urge is to become part of the group, and you will continue the same abnormal behavior. You will immediately develop a kind of dissociation with the reality and you become a pathological case. The mass hysteria works, somebody sees a miracle. Somebody sees Jesus Christ appearing in the sky. If 5 people say it, look, there is Jesus Christ, and everybody screams, and if there is an ecstasy of great faith, everybody would try to see that. A cloud would be enough for them all to identify as either Jesus or Hanuman or whatever they want. You know the famous story in India. There was this very similar story some years back, which I have been working on, which is known as the Monkey Man story. There was a legend, a kind of a story in the city, that there was a small monkey man, which some people say that which could grow into different size, can jump from building to building, and can attack people. And all over Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, and many parts of northern India, many people started seeing a monkey man in the night. Some people say the monkey man can fly. It can jump up. It can put its hands through a wall. And it has green eyes. Rays are coming from the eyes. A lot of stories were there. And pictures were drawn by the narration of these people. I remember I went and talked to these people, and people started getting scratches of monkey man, scratching on their back. That was another interesting incident. Hundreds of people claimed that they were scratched by monkey man. But interestingly, all of them had a 4-line scratch. Normally, all animals have 5 fingers and 5 nails will be there. It's only 4. But forensically, it was found that it was metallic. So then they claimed that the monkey man has metallic claws. So many stories. But it was later identified that there was a report in one of the Hindi newspapers that any man who would find the details about monkey man would get 50,000 rupees, something like that. So one newspaper printed it, anybody who is attacked by a monkey man would get 50,000 rupees. So a lot of people started scratching with a fork on their back to prove that they were attacked. And that added to the story. But really a lot of people experienced the monkey man because it was hot summer, June, July month. And many people, as it is normal in many parts of Delhi and Uttar Pradesh, people will be sleeping on their terraces, on open areas, and there will be a lot of mosquitoes at that time. So people scratch, and every scratch was credited to the monkey man. And if you see a shadow, and somebody in half sleep see a shadow moving of a tree, he would scream, "A monkey man," Kala Bandar in Hindi, and then everybody would stand up and scream and run. And people died, 5 people died, but not attacked by a monkey man, but by falling from the terrace or in stampede. And the Delhi police was in the streets to catch the monkey man. Kiran Bedi was the police commissioner at that time. She came in, Indian Express made a statement at that time. I went to these people, studied, and I very clearly said that there is no monkey man. It's an urban legend by mass hysteria. That's with a lot of evidence I came out with that. And Indian Express at that time made a parallel position. Each time I say that this is a mass hysteria on every point. Kiran Bedi's answer to that, 21 points, countering and pro and countering. But at the end of the day, when the summer subsided and the explanations came, slowly it weighted down. I remember that Time magazine at that time had a 2-page report about that. And I think John Fades has been reporting that. And the report narrated the whole story of the monkey man, and one paragraph was little humorous about me. The whole city witnesses and experiences monkey man everywhere. There is one lone dissenter in the city of Delhi who says that it's an urban legend. And he's all alone. Nobody supports him. That's how the story ended in Time magazine. 2 months later, the Delhi police made an inquiry commission and came out with the result that it was an urban legend. So now it was proven that it was an urban legend. There was no monkey man. It was a fantasy. Similarly, such things can have deeper impact. In Britain, there was one spring-heeled jack. That was some decades back. Somebody has seen a man who has a spring on the heel and who could jump from the street to the top of a building. And from there, he would hop to another building. A lot of people started seeing a spring-heeled jack. It was an urban legend, but hundreds of people claim that they have witnessed the spring-heeled jack. So urban legends and such deep faith has an impact that some people would start experiencing it without having a real fact around them. And once you experience it, because of your hallucination, you narrate it, and the most immediate people would start believing it, and they will start becoming, it's a kind of an unknown bonding conspiracy without you noticing that you become a part of the theory. It spreads. The vulnerability is very fast, reaching out more and more people. Another famous story like this is the Nigerian. That's also an interesting case. In Nigeria, some years back, there was a legend that people are doing some witchcraft which would take away your testes. It was a very famous legend at that time. So, which means some people, some witches are eating the testes of men with magic. It's gone from them and they would eat it to get more power. That's some kind of a witchcraft belief. But the dangerous thing was, the belief was, there are two beliefs came. These are done by albinos. So albinos were attacked everywhere. Albinos are people who don't have color pigments. There is a legend in Africa that albinos have witchcraft powers, and they were attacked every time. The second thing is that, and the second part of the legend was, if you touch a person who had this testis syndrome, if you hit a person with your shoulder, you will be relieved of the problem and you get back your testes, and the other person will get it. And you know what was the impact? Many people felt that their testes is eaten away by some witch somewhere, and it disappeared practically because it sucked in the body. Because out of the deep fear, there's a physiological impact on it, and it has disappeared. And when they hit another person, because of the deep belief that it will come back, they gained it back. It was just sucked in the body and came back only. And just because somebody hit you with your shoulder by mistake in the street, people took weapons and killed. 16 to 20 people died in the streets, just believing that a hitting on the shoulder by another person, perhaps intentionally also, was to pass over this testis syndrome from one person to another. A whole city was under fear. It took almost an year for this fear to go. So the Springfield Jack, the testis syndrome are all, or the monkey man, the Kala Bandar, are all part of the urban legend and mass hysteria. And undoubtedly, with all the present evidences available, one can say that the Havana Syndrome could most probably be another mass hysteria without any base. But all the same, when we see scientifically, we would not rule out any other thing. At this moment, all evidences are pointing out to a legend, urban legend, a mass hysteria that created a kind of vulnerability and more susceptibility, and many people became victims of that knowingly or unknowingly. But researchers are still going on to ascertain whether any sonic weapons can be used specifically to one person without any external mark, without any kind of indication or not, or such a weapon can be developed at all. So this is an open-end story, but this is an important thing to understand, how the beliefs can deeply influence you, and you can become a victim. You can even experience it. You can even fall ill if you are convinced that there is something working against you. Somebody believes that somebody is doing black magic against you. You feel sick, you fall ill, and you can have all the problems just because of your belief. No black magic ever works. But if you believe, it works. If you're afraid, it all affects you. The first thing to understand is reject any external thing till it is proved. One should have also, on the other side, don't accept or reject anything a priori without any inquiry. Keep the mind open, but you need not swallow everything that comes to you. Have the skeptic mind. That's the key of the whole thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you for enlightening us with this topic. We can now proceed with the question answer segment. All of you are welcome to ask questions about any topic or any idea or anything that you want sir to cover. So I think we have a lot of people right now.
I have two questions. Is there are any relation with the flying saucer and the Havana Syndrome? And second one is the Havana Syndrome or black man disease. It is just like a black man syndrome or urban disease in Kerala 2 years back. The same black man disease and Havana syndrome are same. And the third question is the Havana syndrome is affected only to the US diplomats or the diplomats of other countries? Okay, that is all.
Yeah, primarily, I mean, the Havana Syndrome was mainly affected by the diplomats of US origin because they had the deepest belief that some kind of sonic weapons are used against them. There are rumors all around about the powerful sonic weapons that can be used by other countries. So it shifted. Shift from first it was thought that Cuba was doing something against them. So that is against America only. American diplomats are very vulnerable. They have a permanent fear that they are targeted because many world powers are against American interests. So this was against America was the primary feeling. So therefore only all American diplomats did not have the problem. All people in the embassies did not have the problem because in Havana at that time there were several diplomats. Only 3 or 4 people claimed having this problem after the first person claim. Then in Germany, then in Austria. It came in different countries, but only American diplomats had this problem. That is because they were afraid that they are targeted. That was the key of the thing, because many other countries would not have that kind of deep fear that their diplomats are targeted by other people. Secondly, the Kalabandar or monkey man phenomenon in Delhi, as you mentioned, there could be many factors. Initially, apparently, this was beginning with a local monkey attacking somebody, and somebody tells a story. The laborer is moving from one side of the city to the other side, telling the story, which got dimension that a monkey attacks. And so, an exaggerated story from one person could get wild currency at that time. And the kind of stories at that time during the monkey man, legend in Delhi. One was Pakistan is sending secret weapons to India. These are trained robots sent by Pakistan. Some people said in Muslim areas it was said that Israel has sent secret weapons against Muslims. So this was claimed in different ways. Some other people said that these are extraterrestrials. From different distant stars or planets, some people have been sending extraterrestrials here. They come in a UFO. So there are people who claim that they have seen a flying object and some beams were coming, and apparently the monkey man was coming through that. There are a lot of claims coming from different sources based on one's own idea. Also, one has to remember at that time, the monkey idea at that time, the mass programs in the televisions during that time has an impact also. For example, there was a very famous television series at that time about Hanuman, the superpower of Hanuman, who would fly and do different things or shrink into small size. And so apparently the idea got into the mindset of people coming from this television serial at that one side and the Shaktiman series on the other side. So these two, very popular television legends apparently added to the image. So anybody who spoke had elements of these characters also. That is one thing. But the idea that it could be by people coming from the other planets or UFOs coming was also in USA. Such stories have a lot of currency. As you know that more and more people leave traditional superstition and they find fashionable new superstitions like extraterrestrials coming and talking to you, especially if there is a movie at that time very popular with science fictions not only ignite your fantasy to inquire into the possibilities of science, but also it ignites a lot of superstitions and blind beliefs based on your imagination. A set of people, around 10 to 20% of the population anywhere in the world is vulnerable. They are vulnerable and they are waiting for any kind of legends to come and just they want to grab it. So they will take it in the way they want it. So either it is a UFO, it's an extraterrestrial or enemy attacking, all could be possibilities. Similarly, like Monkey Man, there were so many different explanations from extraterrestrial to Pakistan. I think the most popular thing was Pakistan sending charged robots to destroy India. That was the, or some yogis doing some magical powers. All kind of stories were there. But as it is very evident, there are a lot of fiction, a lot of stories, a lot of cinemas all around targeting US diplomats and US diplomats as a target of all kind of wild attacks from all different countries. It's a wild area of fantasy. So this is taken light by a lot of people. I mean, for example, I remember when I was a young man, when I was reading a lot of wild stories of adventures. I've still been remember there was a character, very, very, very popular. I forget the name. I mean, he would go and with a Tommy gun, he would go and win all terrains that is asked by him. So he's like James Bond, for example. So these all fiction characters are presented as very efficient people with a lot of weapons, but who are at the receiving end of a lot of mischievous people targeting them. So there is a fear complex which grows. The moment you have fear following you all the time, you are vulnerable. And based on the level of the enemy, your imagination about the kind of vulnerability that you are in will be advanced. So it's quite obvious that, since there is no evidence shown on anybody who was affected by this Havana Syndrome, there was no damage, there was no, injury, there was no vision loss, though they felt their eyesight were blurred. They never became deaf, though they felt that they could not hear. They felt nausea, but their heartbeats were normal, except when they got excited. It never went out of the way. And no other, symptom of radiation was identified. So one can conclude with the present evidences that it is an urban legend only. It is a mass hysteria only. The way it is, spread also, it was showing all classical patterns of mass hysteria. But all the same, we should have an open mind. Scientific inquiry should not close down stories. There are a lot of still research going on. You have heard the director of CIA officially claiming that this is targeting American diplomats and this could be a secret weapon. You have heard Trump speaking that this is done by China or Russia and they are targeting. All such beliefs are accelerated by powerful people speaking about that. Like the monkey man was defended when I was lonely fighting against that, and the Kiran Bedi, the police commissioner, openly saying that all these people cannot tell lie. She named me and said that Sanal can have to denounce everything, but all the people who experience an attack by the monkey man, they all cannot tell lie. That's what she said at the time. But later the police report itself brought out that it was an urban legend. So let's not close down anything. Can there be a secret weapon, a sonic weapon that can be targeted specifically at people? Well, till it is proved, we have to keep it open, and we need not believe that this is correct. There is no evidence for it. And no UFO coming with weapons.
Right. So next we have another Zoom user.
Havana Syndrome, especially connected to American diplomats. Thank you very much for that. Nobody else discussed this. But even though this is really bothering all of us, it's bothering me. I think all the citizens in America is being bothered by this, since this is a diplomatic involvements. And the Havana Syndrome, the people who got very sick, they've been pulled back and replaced. And their connection, the communication functional level was brought it down. Now Biden is trying to re-establish slowly. The Austria and Germany, I don't know any diplomats have been pulled back to America or not. But recently, when Ms. Kamala Harris tried to travel to South Korea and Singapore, there was a threat of this Havana Syndrome, the microwave weapon. So I don't know, she proceeded with the journey. One report I heard she was proceeded with the journey. The one report I heard she has been pulled back. So I'm not sure about that. Okay, as far as I know, this kind of weaponry was developed during World War II. First time, that is right. In Hitler's time, there was a weapon developed. It's called Jiva bomb. So what it is, it developed a certain race was focused to kill. During World War II, Jewish people were targeted. So they used this as a virus form. They opened it and that special race was attacked, So it seems some point in it. And I don't know, this is a microwave or Jiva bomb, but it's also said Israel has the same bomb. And if they have such a Jiva bomb in there, what race they may be targeting. I don't want to call anybody and all. I am listening to all this. You all are my sisters and brothers, so we all have heavy heart on this. This is not only in Havana Syndrome. These brain injuries are happened during Middle East war. There is a lot of Americans, different races are affected with this.
Can you shorten it? Yeah.
So like you said, I am keeping an open mind, and it's really real. The people are affected. They are not at a functional level. They have loss of vision, blurred vision, tinnitus, unsteady gait, stomach condition, not able to function. But this is very serious. This, I don't have a question on it, but you tell me if you know something more on it. So we all must keep an open mind with this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. But I've noticed that you came late in the meeting, and the first part of the meeting we have discussed many of the possibilities. I don't know exactly, but see, so far there is no conclusive evidence by any of the scientific institutions anywhere in the world to prove that there was a sonic weapon used against these people. Absolutely no. There is only one study in the JAMA journal. Only one study in the JAMA journal. There is no other scientific studies claiming that there was brain injury. And that was also not documented with evidences. So one journal claiming that there was brain injury. But what kind of injury? Was it a syndrome? Every kind of syndromes that people have, they have structural disorders there that can be identified. So was it, you have to have a blind test, double blind test on that. So has it been seen in other people? No, only 2 people they have said that they had identified some kind of a different pattern in their brain. That was not a brain injury. A different pattern was identified. And that was not approved. This JAMA report was not approved by any other scientific institute, including National Scientific Institutes. No, it was not approved. The second thing, all these people who were affected were tested systematically, and they did not have any hearing problem after a certain time. They have a blurred vision at the time. They suffered like any other hysteric patient who would suffer for some time. They did not have any damage of their eyesight. Where a radiation was used or any kind of damage is made, there is a damage made. There is no damage for any of these people. So the Sun reporting or Fox News reporting cannot be taken that seriously. There are sensations in many kind of reports. You have to go for the scientific research is available. So secondly, if politicians speak about weapons, that need not be taken that serious. For example, at one time it was very widely spoken all around the world that Iraq was developing biological weapons. It was made, the whole world was told to believe it. A war was declared on the basis of a biological weapon. But there was no biological weapon available there. And poor Saddam Hussein was, hiding in a little hole. And there was no biological weapon which was identified, but it was told systematically that inquiries found that there are biological weapons there. There was no evidence. Later, United States itself officially said that that was a wrong observation after a great war. For example, what Trump speaks about a weapon without an evidence backed by the scientific community cannot be taken that serious by the scientific community or the critical people. So the paranormal researchers, sometimes they are the people who are trying to mystify all these kind of things. They are, for example, they try to say that there are hauntings in the houses. There are, for example, if there is electric waves of a fluctuation, that's because the spirits are moving from one side to the other. They make a lot of kind of explanations in a very, very believable way for the common folk who are vulnerable to believe that. But till evidences come, one should not be following that with fear. The moment you spread fear, and all these people, another thing, all these people who were affected, they have been asked in detail, and they were all afraid about this weapon. They are not people who never heard about this. They were so sensitive. They've been reading about this. They have been so sensitive and they've been so afraid. And finally, they feel that they are attacked by this weapon. Nothing is proved so far. So that, as you rightly said, the scientific approach is accept or reject anything a priori is not the correct way. We keep it open, we study, but till evidences come, imagination, fantasies, and the claims of the paranormal people should not be taken, and that should not be the base of any serious idea. I mean, one should, of course, there can be weapons that is not understood by other people, but we don't close anything also. The scientific community all around the world is studying on the possibilities, but also such things can happen just because you are vulnerable, you are afraid, and you are sensitive, and you can have a hallucination out of nothing. That's quite possible also. Anyway, thank you for your observation. I'm also good to hear that. United States, the story is well known, and a lot of people are still sensitive about this story. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for saying something about Fox News. Fox News is giving a lot of wrong ideas and misguiding people. Because of that, many people did not take a COVID vaccine. Now we have so many COVIDs, and even city of Houston mayor just tweeted, we don't have any beds. So people who did not take a vaccine, who is catching most of the COVID now. Now it is too late. So many people. So in Florida, the people who resist vaccine, where there is GOP is majority, that's the places the people did not vaccine, so they all are suffering. So I watch ABC, NBC, CBS, and CNN, but I don't watch Fox News. So you also said that cannot be trusted Fox News. I think so too. Thanks for that input. I hope my Indian friends don't care that much about Fox News. Thank you.
Thank you for that update. I'm always delighted to hear the US perspective of things. Coming from USA, especially a person of Indian origin living in USA. The Fox News is, if you want to listen something serious, don't go for Fox News. I would clearly say it. But
I'm so glad.
So a lot of anti-vaxxers were promoted by Fox, for example. It's incredible. Yeah, thank you
Okay.
Anyway.
So moving on, now we have Mr. Ratish KK with us.
Good evening, sir. So it's no. The question is not about this topic what you're talking. I have doubts, sir. How does this Ojo board work, sir? Because if you're 3-4 people sitting around a table, and it gives an output. So how does it? It's really works. It's my doubt.
Yeah, Ojo board is available in every toy shop now. That's the most interesting thing. It's a toy. So the toy shop sells an instrument, but earlier Ojo boards were coming as a very precious way to speak to the people of other world. In the 19th century, last part of 19th century and earlier part of 20th century, in Britain, there were a lot of spiritual, healers. They tried to tell people the idea that all your ailments are coming from spirits desiring something against you. They were a very famous Mary sisters in Britain at that time. London, there were a lot of shops like we have in India. The astrology is everywhere. In London at that time, there were a lot of psychic healers and psychic readers everywhere at that time. And people like Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes is interesting. I still find it interesting. But Arthur Conan Doyle was an ardent believer of all this kind of stuff. He was a part of believer of all these psychic things. And he really believed that one could talk to spirits. So in Ojo board also the idea of you are talking to your spirits and the spirits are answering your questions. That's the fundamental belief. For those who are not familiar with Ojo board is a 2-level circular board which is rotatable this way or that way. And you can put your finger on that or you can place your finger and then it moves towards some direction. The alphabets are written at center part which is not movable, which can be fixed. And your finger is at one part and it moves and moves. Then it stops at one point, which could be closer to one alphabet. All the 27 alphabets in English are there. For example, if you want to get a clear answer, normally one should ask only an yes or no. So the general belief, what all people do with Ojo board, it's very interesting. You can do it other ways also. I've sometimes shown it in television also how it is done. You keep a candle or a small lamp lit in front of it. And then you wait till the spirits come. And how do you know when the spirits came? The flame will flicker. That's how it's believed. So it's very easy that when you look at it and if you breathe, the air is moving and it will flicker. Some moment nearby would get the flame flicker. So then you take that the spirits are around. Then you can start. Then you put your finger. Then you ask, so I love this wonderful girl. Would my grandma approve her? Yes or no? The question. So it doesn't move first. Then it slowly moves and moves and moves. And it comes to why. So the answer is there. Yes. The grandma approves it. One can go ahead. So then you can say that, is my friend really friendly to me or no? Yes or no? So it goes and moves and slowly it comes to an end and the answer is no. So you decide that it's an indication of the spirit helping you to find the truth. Because spirits know all the truth. We don't know. That's a basic idea. But how it works is very simple. It's a movable thing. If there is a spirit coming and helping us to find solutions to our problem, earlier, I don't know whether this kind of thing is popular in other parts of the country. In Kerala, if one falls in love with somebody, one takes a little leaf. Whether that person loves me or not, you throw it. So if it is the back side, one does not love. If it's the other side, she or he is love. So you throw it off. You are uncertain. You want an answer. You are curious, and you want yes or no, and your heart is beating. So you throw a little leaf and look for the answer. So whatever is the answer, if it's yes, you think that it can be wrong. If it's no, you can still say it can be wrong, right. You are still uncertain. Because you are uncertain, that's why you are playing this game. Or you toss a coin. You can do it in other ways also. When there's a cricket game, is India winning or Britain winning? You can toss. You can put 50% chance for anything. It will be correct. But now, it's an expansion of this kind of basic uncertainty, which is part of your anxiety syndrome in a way, that you are looking for these kind of solutions. But what works is very simple. That's the question. You touch the board and it moves after some minutes. How it moves? Because it's movable, number one. It's not a static thing. By a little push, it can move. The push works because your muscles on your finger or your hand is pushing it. That is not a psychomotor movement. Your desire, inner desire, forces the muscle of your palm to move to the direction that you are eagerly wishing to happen or afraid about. If you wish to, you applied for a job, will I get the job or not? You can wait for 3 days and you will get an answer, correct answer, when the results come. Still you want the spirit to come and tell you whether you get it or not. But, it moves the way you are afraid. It can go to no, but still you may get a job. Or then you say that it's luck. And if it comes yes, and if you actually get it, how wonderful, the spirit told it very correctly. So 50% chances for all answers. But what your mind wants is what you get. Because your fingers are moving on the basis of your desire or your anxiety or your expectation. So you push it without you noticing. Your muscles are pushing it. So this has been shown at many places how it works. But the only question that we can always ask is, of course, this is a toy available in the shops. But if there is a spirit coming and explaining us, why doesn't it move without our hands touched on that? It's our hand that moves it. If you don't touch it, the Ojo board does not move. and the spirits are so weak that they cannot push it. That's the answer. It's we who are moving it based on our own wish and our own desire, our own expectation. Thank you.
Right. So I think we can conclude our meeting for today. Thank everybody for participating, and thank you, sir, for bringing up such an interesting topic, which I also had no clue about. And this was a very interesting session, and I hope we have more of sessions like these. And let's meet next weekend.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Shubhi. And we close today. Bye-bye.
Thank you.